What's that? Oh, we're all set?
Yep.
Okay. I will call this Board of Selectmen's meeting to order for April 27th, which is the second most important day of the year, being Pamela's birthday. So roll call. Roll call, Phil Crossman, Donald Poole, myself, Pam Alley, Jake Thompson, Andy Dorr, Town Manager, and Elizabeth Bunker, Deputy Town Clerk, taking the minutes. Approve the agenda. We do have few additions under new business. G will be the thoroughfare float, and H will be downtown marine railway. This is only two additions.
Would you do H again?
Downtown marine
Oh, okay.
railway. So approve the minutes from the April. Oh, I'm sorry. I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Donald Poole. All those in favor? Okay, minutes. Approve the minutes from the April 6th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second the motion. Discussion. All those in favor? The April 13th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second that motion. Discussion. All those in favor? And the April 20th meeting. So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Donald Poole. Discussion. All those in favor? Approve and sign treasurer's warrant number 43. So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Donald Poole. All those in favor? And we do have 3 signatures. Seeing no communications and unfortunately no speakers from the floor.
think there is.
There is? Oh, we are
All
live?
right, well, when, are we all vaccinated in this room? Can we take our masks off now? Or not? What's the rule on that?
We are all vaccinated.
In a public building, they're saying that in public buildings, we still need to be distance and expect to wear the mask in public facilities.
I just saw that they dropped the mask mandate broke, so I thought we were
Yeah.
gonna vote.
I guess
We'll be wearing these for the next several years.
only 5 more years ago.
So there is, I believe, someone on.
If there is somebody out there, I can't see them.
Yeah, there's nothing on
I have nothing.
I'm here for the 4th of July committee, Eric,
Hi, Julie.
Millie.
Sorry.
We can't see.
I was taking a guess.
I'll get this.
I'll get in trouble later for that. Go ahead if you please.
it. Are you still there? She's talking, but she's muted.
I'm here.
Okay, there we go.
Hi, Millie.
Hi, Pam. Are you guys
Go ahead.
ready? Are you ready for us now or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thanks. Thanks, first of all, for allowing us to talk with you folks tonight. We kind of want to get your feeling on what the 4th of July celebration will look like this year. We've met a few times and we've come up with 3 possible scenarios. One would be a traditional 4th of July as we had long ago before COVID, obviously. The second would be making it a little smaller, having smaller venues or less venues to allow more social distancing and such. And then the third one obviously would be totally canceling 4th of July for this year. So I guess we would like to hear from you on where you folks stand, understanding that, you know, we still have several months. Hopefully it's too soon to pull the plug and we can continue on with some possible plans and contingency plans.
Well, my feeling is that if the governor's order, whatever the governor's orders happen to be at the 4th of July, you know, some sort of celebration, you know, would be excellent as long as we're not out of compliance. And making sure that we can stay in compliance is important, obviously. People there
Right.
make sure whatever social distancing and mask wearing, et cetera, rules are still in place at that point in time.
I would not be for canceling it now. I don't think there's a need to cancel it.
Right.
I think we can move forward knowing that we might have to change plans depending on what happens in the coming weeks.
Agreed.
How far in advance do you have to know, Millie, to make plans?
Well, this is Julie talking. We usually know by now. We usually have a theme picked out. People say that sell crab meat are picking their crab meat, but we all know that it's a different year. So we would like to think in 1 month, we would know by the end of May. So we'd have a month to plan it.
Right. Reasonable.
Yeah.
I think the Lions are planning on doing crab rolls regardless. We'll just sell them from somewhere else, you know, to go if the, you know, the booths are closed. I thought that's what we decided at the last Lions meeting anyway.
Yeah, and that's what we did last year as a fourth committee. We sold pizza out of, down by the dirt parking lot, and we plan to do something like that this year, just at different venues and spread out if everything is canceled. So, I mean, that's kind of part of our plan B, is having people still have some vendors set up at different places spread out, so.
Well, right now, it seems like after listening to the federal CDC report today, it seems like things are moving along in a good direction, so. Hopefully
Yeah,
in a
that's-
month. Yeah, hopefully in a month, we would have more direction from the state.
I'm thinking after today's new mandate, I think they'll have new plans coming out within a few weeks, I would think, so.
And they've also lifted the freeze on Johnson & Johnson vaccine, so I think you're gonna see a larger number of folks that haven't been vaccinated yet will have those options coming back to them. So hopefully they'll speed back up on the vaccination process.
One question that comes up is, say, you are allowed to go outside without your mask in smaller crowds right now. If we were to have vendors in the parking lot and people were supposed to wear masks, does it come down on us to police these people? Or are they old enough to be able to do this themselves and make the right decision? What are your thoughts on that?
Andy can maybe respond.
Well, presumably on town property, someone ought to be responsible for making sure that, the guidelines are being complied with. I mean, again, we're on town property, and the expectation is upon us to either grant that ability to do that event, or, and those things should still be put in place and accounted for. The mandate the change in the guidelines for outside, still calls for, if you can't maintain distance, and so I'm thinking about a traditional 4th of July, and where so many people come down there, you'd still be expected to wear the masks downtown during that event, which isn't the end of the world, but it'd be nice to be able to do the event. But it wasn't a carte blanche. If you're outside, you don't have to wear them. You do still need to be able to be apart at least 6 feet. They're calling for. And again, we're on town property. I mean, that's how as of right now, anyways, what we. So hopefully there's things that keep heading in the right direction. The state will be able to, they're usually pretty on top of those guidelines and modifying those things as these come down. So they just announced it today, and hopefully, within another year or so, we'll see something different.
Right?
Okay, I mean, I think we just.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. And I mean, to me, it sounds like probably our best bet would be to plan for the smaller venue versus obviously the traditional or none at all. So
Maybe spread it out a little more.
We'd spread it out. We won't have as many things in the parking lot.
Probably won't have a parade.
The parade's kind of iffy because that's where the people really gather and cluster in.
But we are gonna research how we may have a parade. We're not
Right.
totally ruling it out yet, but we know that's one of the,
People
The
would
hardest
spread
things to
out
control.
further along the parade route, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, instead of turning up the street past the sandbar, maybe they could turn around the ball ground or something, and spread it out so people could line up all the way to the church or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, turn.
Yeah, we considered along a parade route, but as you all know, a majority of the people, even when we, start at, say, the fire hall, people are pretty packed in there. So our concern is how do we get people to spread out to oblige by, the actual, we have a new parade route that starts, say, by the co-op gas station or the ferry service, and bring it up around the bandstand or past the bandstand. For how do we get people to spread out there? So that's something that we need to consider and think about as well.
If you partition it off along the prairie route, only so many people in each section.
Right.
Just a thought, I don't know how easy that would be to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a thought.
But things might look different in another month anyway.
Right.
That's what we're hoping.
we hope so.
We all hope.
And in 2 months from now, when the 4th is, I mean, hopefully things are a lot different.
Right.
Exactly.
State of Maine right now is the most vaccinated state in the country.
Yeah, but the thing you gotta worry about is there's so many people from away that come from the 4th.
Yeah.
If it was just island people, I wouldn't be as worried as
Right.
you don't know who's gonna be here. I mean, that's usually one of the biggest, busiest weeks of the summer season, I think. I would
Yeah.
assume, I mean, it seems like it
Yeah.
is to me, I'm not sure statistical wise, but that's the only thing that, if it was just, if this was December 4th parade, I wouldn't really be worried about it.
No.
And we do, remember, we do have fireworks, a big show on that Saturday night, the 3rd.
What's that?
They are doing.
Yeah, we're
fireworks.
doing
Oh,
fireworks are Saturday, July 3rd, right around 9 PM.
Is the 4th gonna be on the 4th or is it gonna be on the 3rd?
Well, we're talking, we're still in discussion about that.
We'll lean into it Saturday. What are your thoughts?
I have to work either day, so it doesn't matter.
If you did it on Sunday, then you'd have a bunch of people at church, so you'd have less people there maybe, but that's the only thought I have.
But if we did it on Saturday, we'd have less lobstermen, right?
I don't know about that time of year, if people really care about it.
I don't think it really matters. I think it's up to the committee to decide what they want to do.
Yeah, we just started talking about it today, so.
Well, I didn't even realize it was on a Sunday.
You guys put up a great show every year, so we'll trust you, you know.
Oh,
yeah.
thanks.
Hopefully the month
Thank you.
will have better guidance.
Right.
You'd think the state would be thinking about these things for, come up with some kind of guidance at some point, I would assume.
Let's hope everybody gets vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's right, absolutely.
Sure.
The more the merrier, right, Pam?
Absolutely.
Should we
Maybe
plan
you
to
guys
check
should
in?
put that in your next ad.
What's that?
I was
Do we
just saying,
plan to
maybe
check in?
Put something in the next window ad about, you know, the more people get vaccinated, the better chance we have of 4th of July, something like that.
There you go. Should we plan on checking in with you folks again next month or the month?
Yeah,
Next month, I guess.
End of
In like
end of
4
May or
weeks.
so, yeah.
4
4
weeks.
weeks. Okay.
Okay,
Would that
we'll
be-
do that. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to talk about the bandstand or are we set on that for right now?
Do you have any updates on it?
Yes. Have you
Yes.
seen it?
We have, $4,690 right now, plus 500 with the town. Our next step is to move or lift and secure the back on the footings, either the existing or add some new ones. Jones Excavation has volunteered to help us with that, so that's awesome. After that, we need to shingle the roof. We're getting some samples together now. We have the spindles all set. Josh Elliker. Huh?
Oh, Eccles.
Eccles, sorry, I don't know him. Josh Eccles is willing to do that for us. So he's getting his materials together now and material prices now. Excuse me. And then we have structural work, such as replacing the post covers, benches possibly, and paint, etc. Bill Chillis is involved with doing this along with some others. And then we have some granite landscaping coming in with Hugh Martin. He's given Tori some plans for granite, and are we asking them this?
No.
Okay, so we've got a lot of moving parts, but it's moving forward well.
Great.
That's great. That's gonna be nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any other speakers from the floor? Anybody else on with us? Okay, we will go on to committee and department reports and appointments, capital projects.
As I did share, the most recent one, did share, I get them on Mondays usually, so shared yesterday's report just this afternoon, it's on the screen here. the bridge, the Carrying Place Bridge is, I guess the culvert pieces are being worked on now, so they're anticipating having them out here to start installing those on the week of the 10th. So 2 more weeks, and that's on hold until they'll get here. The Public Works garage is, probably 85-90%.
Are they doing the doors right now?
They're heading, I think they're coming out, if they didn't come out today, I think it's
There's
tomorrow.
2 trucks down at the time order that say something doors on them, that's why I assumed they probably were.
So this week, the overhead doors should be going in. The heating system should be getting turned on this week. The electricians are still finishing up what they need to do, and I think we're planning for early next week to assist with digging the trench and helping do the laying the new conduit, and they're going to convert to 220 service. So that's moving along. The engineers will be out on Friday to go through the punch list of things. There's a bunch of small things that any project has to make sure to follow up on, and probably there's a few things that need to get repaired or fixed as a result of working in there. So they're all minor. And then the sand shed is starting to get its frame, the metal work going up, probably close to halfway, getting close to halfway at this point. So hopefully that'll be in the next couple weeks substantially completed as well. And it'll just leave us to have to get a asphalt surface in there once they get out of there. So all those are moving along good. I don't know if any of you had a chance to stop in and look at any of it or have any questions on it.
It looks like they're on track to finish on time, pretty much.
For the most part, yeah, I think the substantial completion part, the bridge is a little bit delayed, just waiting for the culvert pieces to come in. But should still be done at this point. I mean, the bridge installation part, it should be open again, certainly by the end of May. Hopefully even, I don't know how long it'll take them to get those in backfill and be open again, but I assume by the end of May that's very likely. And I think we have to like mid-June to be done completely, so they'll have to hustle to get that material out of the water.
Okay.
We do want to talk to them about some of that material and some of the blocks that are up there as potential uses for other projects we have coming up while they're already here, instead of mobilizing them again. We'll follow up with them on that.
And there's no expected, because I see here, there's no change order, no additional funding is requested or anything like that.
No, the only,
On track and on budget, so.
we did receive, so we went into with the contract price for the garage component of the public works facility, and I think there was a contingency going into it about 40 grand. So they did come back and they've kind of like the framing, the metal frames of the inside of the building up there. It's some of them they're fairly rusty. There's been some water damage over the years on them, and so they peeled. They're rusting. While we're rehabbing this whole thing and putting what we're putting into it, the question was, do we want to sand down, prep, and paint those, while we can, so they don't continue to rust and potentially, continue to eat away. So we did get a price on doing that. It was $8,400 to be able to go through all those components and do that while it's still under construction. While the lifts are already out here, if we were to do it after the fact later on, it would cost us more to mobilize some of that equipment again or rent it off, from someone else. So I'll know more on Friday. It's certainly, it looks like it's well within the ability to do it within what we had for a total amount to afford. But I'll know for sure by Friday when the engineer comes out and we go through both sets of numbers. The only other thing we've talked about, depending if there was funds available still within that 1.6 million, was whether we want to consider a generator or not. The hookups there, we're designing it in a way so that all we have to do is someday, if we wanted to, is just buy the generator. I happen to have a price for the one out here, because apparently the one outside of this building right now is needing to be repaired or replaced. That was a surprise after their visit a couple weeks ago. And it wasn't nearly as much as I expected if it's the same size. So we have a 14 kilowatt unit for this building. So I'm just waiting to figure, I got to find out if that's roughly the same size, but I think the price we got estimated for, or quoted for this building for that unit was, I think, just under $6 grand. I think going into it, we were thinking it was more like 12 or 15 potentially, so do need to confirm, verify what size we'd be looking at, but that would be the only other thing that I can think of. That'd be a potential consideration for an add-on.
Is that with the switch that automatically turns it on, or would it be a manual switch?
I think up there, I think we put a manual one in, I believe.
Okay.
So the switch went in as far as I know, or it was we were trying to phase it, because we do have a generator, it's a very small, portable one. So we were trying to design it and put the switch in and design it in a way that we could do some basic things. If power was out, the most important one, would be at least emergency lights and the ability to pump fuel, so we can keep trucks going, because if power was out, trucks are probably needing to go. So then it's a matter of the pump for the well, the pump for the septic, making sure whatever we have to decide, if we want to keep those going, decide it accordingly. So if I can circle back on the generator piece, what's your thoughts towards the painting? We'd have to be able to say yes on Friday, basically, once we're confident with the numbers, if we wanted them to do it as part of while the equipment's out here. The painters are coming out next week anyways, it sounds like, to do touch up and finish work on something, so they have the ability to do that work next week if we want to have them do it. It says
How many years do they think it'll add to the structure? Do they give you an estimate on that?
I don't know, I don't have a number of how many years we'll add to the structure. It's
No.
a matter of knowing that it's starting to rust into, it's had water damage. So it's a matter of being able to seal that again, and so for me, maybe Pam's got a better idea on painting.
Are these Sheridan painters who are coming out?
All subcontractors, but Sheridan is coordinating all the work, yeah.
I would think we're in pretty deep now, and if we want to protect the building, want to go and just get it painted,
Absolutely.
but, sorry, what was the estimated cost?
400.
Yeah, it's
400.
probably 400 bucks.
Is that, I wouldn't know if I was being ripped off on painting or not, like,
Well,
It's
I'm
the
assuming
same
it's some
and
kind of
painting,
special
right?
epoxy paint they have to put on it, if it's metal or not.
Yeah, I don't know if I got
It's
the,
the sanding work and then the painting.
yeah. It's sanding, that's really the,
I think that'd be the more labor intensive part.
one would think.
I
So
think
what are we gonna do?
it
We're
makes
just gonna
sense.
authorize Andy to spend up to a certain amount?
well,
since we're not
it's
gonna do-
within the,
Oh,
I
so
guess
we
trying to
don't
get
have
a
to-
sense of, whether you feel that that's a good investment at this point to do, or we're trying to rehab this whole thing and get, 50,
I would-
60.
I would think we've just put however many hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
of dollars into that building, we probably better
Yeah.
spend the $400 or so on painting it and just
Mhm.
not have to think about it.
A lot of that steel work was actually covered because of the way they insulated it, so, but there's still the major upright components, and most of them have some rusting going on, some more than others where water was coming in before, so to me, it makes sense, the engineers think it makes sense, and the
Yeah.
price, given that some of the equipment's already out here, you want to mobilize it again by now, so they think they feel it's the best price we're probably gonna get.
But this would be the first part of the contingency that we'd be using, correct?
As far as that's what we're waiting I need to confirm, but as far as I know,
Because if we're like, because with the contingency, what we approved, but if
Right.
we don't use that, then we're under budget, so
right,
even if we use this and we don't use the rest of it, we'll still be under
Right.
budget. in a sense.
right.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense to use.
I think it makes sense to go ahead and do it.
Okay, so once I am confident in what we have spent so far and projecting to do, I'll give them that green light if that looks like okay on Friday.
We're in this state.
The other thing they mentioned is not a capital project, but we still have outstanding, and it's in one of those reports from them, status report, is the harbor improvement plan. Probably forgot that we have that in the works still, but it's been a while. So there's a consultant that was working, that Wood and Curran was helping work with. They did the Rockland Harbor Improvement Plan a few years ago, and so they are the team to do these things. And we started, I think last time we met as a group on that, it was November, December, I think. So they've been working on it over the winter, but there's recently been some time that they have to step away from as something that came up as a family emergency. And so that's still in the works. The plan was to have it like first week of May, early May, to be able to have us review it, because the state wants it completed. We asked for an extension. They want it completed by the end of June, I believe, or maybe the end of May even. So it's not giving us a lot of time to be able to review it with what's come up recently. So that is another thing that's just outstanding at the moment that should be coming within the next few weeks. Just put on your radar to review. Certainly if we need more time to review as a community, we'll certainly ask the state for a little more. We can show them the draft and say it is done, it's just, but we do need to finalize it. We're not going to try and rush and put anything through without a review process. So, but that is coming as well.
2 items on here. The one about the town to notify Sheridan by early next week if they want to keep a temporary furnace. They intend to dispose of it midweek, but they're going to go back to the town.
That was the 19th.
That was, oh, sorry.
I think, just want to confirm. I did say that, because it sounds like I've kind of checked with a few people, and it sounds like there's at least a couple people that might be interested in, putting a bid on it if it, to sell. It obviously does still work. We've used it for the last 4 months. I said, let's not just throw it away if there's still some use to it, and someone else could recycle it and reuse it on the island. So they pulled it out as far as I know, and it's,
As long as they're not going to get rid of it. So. Okay.
I didn't ask them. I asked them not to. At a future meeting, I'll put together a package of a bunch of surplus equipment. We're going to potentially have some, when we do the move of things, probably have a few things in addition that we might want to try and get rid of and sell.
And then they're going to price out adding a small exterior light over the main door. Is that something we'll get?
Yeah, there was a couple extra lights we had talked about including. For a couple $100 each. It wasn't too much. So that was the only other one that I know of that. A little bit, if they're here and they're trying to build it right. So the one we wanted to put, there's an overhang into the entry door that didn't call for light in the design, so we did want to add one there. I think we added one more wall pack so that each garage door had a wall pack over it, so there was light over the doorway. So it only called for 3 originally.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we'll go on to road commissioner report.
I feel like I may have shared before. This is one of the ways that the pub work software can report out, work done, and so it's different from what you had before, because before you have it by the day and the work and who did what and times. This one kind of summarizes the work over that work period by task in the program. It just kind of shows you in a different way on cost basis, what was spent towards different tasks. They've been out working on gravel roads for the most part. I know there's a few spring tasks and things that we have to do. Get some of the parks ready and some of the other minor things. The Galamander was undressed, if you will, and save the lumber for next year, and we'll deal with that when that time comes. But hopefully that helped by doing that. I'm sure it helped by doing that this winter. So other than that, we are, as far as I know, still waiting and just waiting for the contractor to be able to start working on around the island road to start doing some culvert replacement. We did put an order in for enough to replace every culvert on there. It's like over 20 culverts that need to be replaced across that road. So that's one of the plans, but we are trying to work with a local contractor, to try and just let them loose on that job. Once we get the roads graded, we'll be probably shipping ourselves to some of the ditch maintenance elsewhere.
Is there any more ditching to be done around the other road to finish that off?
Anyway,
Ditching to be done, remaining to be done?
there'll be some places that will need to do ditching. You're going to want to set your ditches before you put the culverts in if you can get them deeper. So yeah, that presumably will be part of that work that they'll do.
Where do they want to go after that for ditching?
If that project's able to be done in of itself by another contractor, we'll be able to. Poor Farm's still on the list to continue working on. Tiptoe still got some things to work on. Last I knew, the road name changed. The one that goes up into up near where Sharon Philbrook lives. Drawing blank on the new name there. But I know that road.
Sailor's Way?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I know that one's one that needs a little bit of work still for drainage. There's certainly plenty more to stay on top of, and we need to get in the habit of going back through, so it's not a decade or two in between, redigging some of these. So mean, you can kind of take your pick. There's plenty of places to try and get into.
What's the miscellaneous? Is that the second largest item on there?
I'd have to get right into the work order to get specific examples, but I mean, anything else they might do that's not included in one of those other topics
Do they
there.
just not have enough
I can,
options?
so I mean, yeah, so when the program's built and we're still trying to figure out the best way to categorize things, and, you know, part of it's a question of how do you want to see the reports? You know, we can kind of choose how we break it down and categorize it. You know, it's just kind of what they did based on what I think what they were doing the most of, or what to them made sense to break down. But part of it's just you know, is there certain things that you want to have. Some of it's about, you know, with the performance management stuff that we're talking about doing, you might want to track certain tasks over others, or more specifically. And so if it's, you know, minimal, you know, and it's not enough to track in of itself, or substantial enough project to track in of itself, a task, then it would just fall in that miscellaneous. But I can get a better list that breaks out what we put in there.
Yeah, that seems pretty high
Miscellaneous should be
for,
one of your smallest items when you're reporting, in my opinion, and from what I've seen as an accounting professional.
Yeah, we
You get
get
this big miscellaneous bucket, it's like, well, what the heck is that?
Exactly.
So it shouldn't be that large. You should be able to categorize things a little bit better. But if they don't have the right categories, then that's something we need to address. So.
again, it's not less about a money, because it's not a bookkeeping software, so it's about trying to track tasks. And so that's a work order software primarily. It's an inventory software. So he happened to have another one that was 7 pages long, as he said there.
Yes.
Because it just has a lot of formatting and spacing built into it. What I was trying to do is avoid handwriting the tasks every day.
Yeah.
Submitting those, you know, in an email, you know, or Dan creating an email to then send to me, to then have someone else enter into the program, if we could just enter it in the program, right? And then find the way the program can generate the reports you guys want to see,
Yeah.
that are meaningful. And, you know, if what he had before in his emails is what you want, then we'll just see if we can find a way to get it closer. If not, we'll have to go back to just doing it the way it was.
I mean,
I'm still tracking it in here.
I think this format is good. I just would like to see a little more clarity on that miscellaneous.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner? Planning Commission.
All right, I think I saw Ellen hopped on, but they submitted minutes from their meeting a couple weeks ago, following the last selectmen's meeting. The whole meeting was spent talking about the home occupation follow-up from the select board. So I don't know if you had a chance to read their minutes or not, or had questions on that, but
well, presumably they'll have a lot more after tomorrow, because they were all supposed to research different towns, and then they were gonna come up with something, right? Isn't that what, did I read that right?
They're meeting this Thursday.
Thursday, sorry, I'm gonna have the date wrong, but yeah. Oh, yeah. It says Monday, the 29th, but that's definitely not right.
Yes.
so.
Yeah,
Unless they met yesterday, did they mean Monday, the 27th?
they
Today's the
didn't.
27th.
The housing committee met yesterday.
What day it is? I know it's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday.
I think they're on the right track. I think they're mindful of the ambiguities and the need to tidy that up and remove those. I think they're on the right track.
It's also good that they're checking other ordinances around to see how they might deal with these similar issues.
That should be helpful too, yeah.
Ellen?
I would hope.
Hello?
Hi, Ellen.
Hi. Just to clarify, when we talked about just adjusting the home occupation, taking out the second paragraph, Chuck Gadzik very quickly and smartly pointed out that if we just did that and went to a special town meeting and redid the home occupation, it would look like this was all being done because of Jake Stanley's permit. And he said that would be very impolitic within the community. What we need to do is find a solution, not just change the home occupation. We need to find a way that people can get permits for businesses, but with the appropriate criteria. So that's what we're working on now. We're researching a lot of other similar towns' ordinances. So far, I researched about 10, and I haven't found any towns that do what we have done in ours. And mostly it's a site location review or a special exception permit, but there's a lot of criteria. So I think, I don't know what you think, but we seem to think that Chuck was right. We need to have a solution to the whole problem as well as fixing the home occupation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the position of the board is that there seems to be a loophole that shouldn't exist, but we want to make it easy for people to open up businesses, right? I mean,
Right.
that was.
Well, I don't know about easy. I
Very
guess I shouldn't
vague.
agree to
Yeah.
easy, but there should be criteria that has to be met for a business, not this sort of home occupation loophole.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we just don't have enough residential, commercial zone, big enough area zone. I mean, downtown, there's hardly any
I
vacant
thought
lots down there.
what you said was good to like have them not be down these small side streets. Did you say that at the meeting? I thought that they had it under your name.
I do not recall. I'd have to look at the minutes.
But I thought that's what it said. That does kind of make sense that you would only permit them on, places that had 2-lane roads or whatever, if it was gonna be a large traffic, a lot of traffic going in. If it was just me making, I don't know, wicker baskets or something at my house and shipping them out, there wouldn't be as much people coming and going. There should be, different rules for different,
Right, if people have to come to your place, residence or business.
the roads should be
To
taken
actually
into
conduct a business, you're gonna have more.
They
traffic.
might, that's what I thought the minute said, that you brought it up, that maybe it should just be on.
North Haven and State Roads. North
Okay,
Haven Road and State Roads.
I thought I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
I thought it was attributed to Andy, which I thought kind of made sense to, maybe think about.
Well, I mean, it's been 20 years since a substantial change in the ordinance has happened, right? And we do need to keep up to date with the current, with what the challenges and issues are. And, we haven't done folks any favors that want to create businesses, that don't have the ability to build them or open downtown.
Well, 20 years ago, there wasn't the gig economy that there is now too. I mean, so there's potentially gonna be a lot more businesses open, in the future out here, I would think. I mean, with FedEx and everything, you could pretty much do stuff anywhere now.
Right. Potentially broadband.
I think they're on the right track. I really do. I think they're on the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have-
working
I-
at it. Come up with
I have no suggestions.
some language that
Yeah.
we can talk about.
Any questions for the board, Ellen, or clarifying?
Well, if you all have any suggestions as to how we can solve the problem, we're all ears. We're all volunteers trying to do the best we can, but it would really be great if we had some expert assistance with some of these trickier ordinance issues.
Is there anyone like Nick had that does anything like that or not?
If there's someone available, they might be. I don't know if they specifically have expertise, what the depth of expertise is there. It's certainly possible. Having them come in for a one-off meeting to review something is one thing. Having them be substantially part of a process to kind of like be there for a few meetings is probably what I think would be better, right? So it's not, they can kind of truly understand what's going on and get a little more depth on what we're trying to ask for. But again, if we come up with something to draft and we say, you review this to make sure it's consistent with the shoreline zoning or the other state laws that they might be mindful of, they can definitely do that. But I get the sense that, where the commission is, it's truly trying to find, and be mindful of, as the committee members are trying to do their own research, maybe they know something different or have seen something better or further out, no other places to look. And so that's what I think happens. They had someone that could really jump on with them.
Does anyone come to mind?
I mean, I can check with McKed and see what their capacity is, as members, through the county tax bill now. That's something that
Check with what?
the McKed, the Mid-Coast Economic Development District, we don't have a regional planning commission anymore, so they kind of serve as that role as they can.
We pay taxes to them for that purpose.
I mean, if they don't have someone, maybe they could, see somewhere, maybe there's a good resource somewhere. I don't.
I mean, I agree with Alan, we should get some input from others who have more expertise in the area. We don't, I don't know anything about it. I would welcome some expert advice as well.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know where to find it.
Good question as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ellen.
Well, thank you. We'll forge ahead.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
all we can do.
That's right.
Okay, planning and community development.
Is that Gabe?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm gonna do a screen share.
Okay.
Hi there. Yes, I just wanted to give a quick update on downtown projects funding. So we have a grant deadline coming up on May 14th for our NBRC grant, which we're hopefully putting in for $1 million. And this community projects funding, which we just submitted an application for, that's earmarked funding. It's a little trickier than we were originally thinking, but it looks like that some of the sewer and wastewater components are eligible for that funding. So we're trying to sort of retweak our application and see if we can get some of the project, those components of the project funded that way. So that's just an update to say we are still working on funding. We haven't heard back from EDA yet, hopefully soon, but that's all I can say to that. I did talk with Ed today to see if there was any more information. Andy will get word before they will likely. So we'll just hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I think I said that 2 weeks ago, but saying it again. And then I spoke with our engineers today, and we definitely need to put out, to the community, but specifically to the business and property owners along Main Street, as in particular those who have participated all along in providing input and feedback in the downtown master plan process and have participated in subsequent surveys. We need to provide them and the community with an update and essentially a summary of the project and an overview of the timeline. It's slightly tricky because we don't, we're not fully funded yet, so we don't know all of the project components. So what we're proposing to do is just write, I'm going to write something as I feel it should be presented, and have it to you by the 7th for your board packet. And hopefully, on the 11th, you can provide feedback or thoughts on if you feel that it's what we, what's a good representation of how we basically want to present the project. It's like I said, it's in a way it's hard because we don't essentially know fully what we're going to be able to do until we have all the funding in place, or at least all the opportunity for funding either comes to fruition or doesn't. But we just really need to get out there and not delay further with information to the public. And like I said, particularly the folks who are most directly impacted by the project. So any thoughts or questions on that?
Nope, it's just,
Long process.
yeah, I'll be glad when someone has broken ground somewhere.
You will be. I will be for sure. Yeah, it'll definitely a big project. Lots of moving parts and pieces. So and then same timeline with information. The broadband task force will be meeting on the 6th of May, and the survey closes this Friday, and we'll be compiling the information from the survey into a straightforward report that sort of tells the story of what the community is it has said through the survey, and we'll be discussing that report on the 6th with the committee, and but we'll have it in your board packet on the 7th. And we would like to then, at least a couple members of the committee, and then of course, knowing that Eric and DW are on the committee, but just like to have a discussion, and we'll do a little presentation of the report at the meeting on the 11th too, so the community is able to see what the survey results were, besides just going to the website. So I just wanted to update you on that and see if that worked for you as far as timeline goes.
So, another project that, would be good to make some headway on.
Yep.
All right, I just want to do a quick plug, while we're live on Facebook. I don't know if anyone's, watching tonight, but, last chance to, take the survey. We did push out a mailer today to, local addresses and foolishly, I forgot to remind everybody that there's $100 cash prize right on that, mailer, which totally slipped my mind. But just to remind folks, you can take it online. If you do want a paper survey, you can call the town office, pick one up there. You can also have one mailed to you. And the website, the town website, if you just search broadband or see anything related to broadband on the town website, you will find all the information you need to take that survey. 11:59 p.m. on Friday is your last chance to take the online survey. So, and thank you everyone who has done it so far. We really appreciate the participation, and just, this is your opportunity to share your input.
Right, regardless whether you're yay or nay.
Yeah, please fill it out. Okay, any questions? All right, thank you, Gabe.
Thank you, Gabe.
Okay, is this old business land use ordinance leftover, or?
Yeah, I was assuming there'd be follow-up on the home occupation piece, but I think you guys, sound like you guys
Okay.
covered that.
Yeah, I think we got that all set. So we have some ancient history now to take care of. A quick claim deed from 1985 for 70 Pond Street.
15, hold on.
Paid 8/27/1985. I was.
How did this slip through the cracks so long?
There was a, Darlene
I was in the law.
looked into it. There was a couple years of, so usually when it comes to foreclosure, you usually got at least, I think, 3 tax years that are due at that point when the foreclosure happens. So I think what happened was there was previous liens from the first 2 years that one was cited in the discharge, one wasn't. So it was all paid, they just didn't write it up properly. So she went back and found the payment. And usually through title searches, this is where it comes up. Someone just reads through the registry of deeds and you can see what's filed against your property. So I think that's probably what happened, and they just need that to be verified and cleared. And so we verified payment happened back in 1986. Just need to do the discharge.
Look at all that, Charlie.
Well, I make the motion that we sign this quick claim deed.
Second,
Seconded by Pam Alley. All those in favor, I'm not even gonna ask for discussion. So I have the one right here, we'll sign it at the end of the meeting. Okay, and we have annual lease agreements and contracts that we renew annually. I haven't looked at a single one of them, I'll admit.
I skimmed them. They didn't look like there was a whole lot of changes to anything, was there?
There shouldn't be other than the dates at this point.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity. I didn't want to wait till we get to July again this year before we do it. So if there's any changes to any of those that you know of or that you want to see, whether it's terms or pricing or whatever, now would be the time to let us go through that, and I can make those changes and follow up with folks on the other side of it.
The mowing contract, that price hasn't gone up.
Again, all I did was change the dates. If I go to David, I perhaps he asks for it, perhaps he doesn't.
He just got one last year, right? Was it last
Last
year?
year or 2 years.
I have to look. I think we also had modified as well some of the pieces that were added to the contract.
I just had a different number in my head.
So these are all drafted, just in draft form at the moment, and if any of them have anything that you know of that you want to address or ask questions about when I take them to folks, that'll be the time to let you know.
Is the engine house press, did they all paid up?
I'll have to double check. I gotta follow up with them. I learned last week that it's possible, they might be looking to relocate, so I gotta confirm that myself and find out.
As long as they're paid up, I'd be fine offering it again, but obviously if they don't want it.
Okay, so we'll review that in our next meeting.
The only thing, I mean, there's still no chance of the thoroughfare one being like 10 years, 20 years, so we can put some money into it.
I mean, we could always put money into it as local funds. If we want some of those grant funds that are out there, we need to have a longer term agreement set up.
I thought, like, to spend a lot of money up there, we need to have like a longer lease. Or in theory, would be good to.
Right, so for grant, if you're using grant funds from state or federal monies, you know, they're gonna expect you to have ownership of the property or long enough interest in the property, so they're looking at generally 99-year lease or ownership when the grant funds come in. If you want to use local funds, it's a matter of whether the town voters are willing to allocate those funds for property that is, you know, again, for a long time used as a public use, but on an annual lease basis. Just want to, you know, it's good for the voters to.
Okay, I had
To
that-
approve
I
it.
just had it wrong. I thought, like, never mind.
I thought we couldn't spend any public money. Okay.
So it's
So,
ours for that lease term, so as long as, you know, it's.
So presumably, maybe we could use some of that TIF money to fix up that landing.
That's my understanding through talking with some of the MMA attorneys and some folks in the state office that oversees the TIF agreements, and they think the way it's written, it would allow us to.
Well, I think we should look into it then. I mean, that, like you said, someone put their foot through the top asphalt and stove themselves up pretty good. Was it last summer or 2 summers ago?
Yeah, and we put some asphalt down, you know, as a temporary fix for those holes, and
Maybe that's something that Kevin could look into. I don't know. It seems like that would be a project that would maybe be right up his alley.
Mhm.
Or it seems like he could probably do it pretty good to me. I don't know, maybe not.
all right, so we'll approve these at our next meeting.
Okay.
As long as you don't have any changes.
yeah, once I
Well,
have
you
a
gotta-
chance to
I was gonna say,
follow up with everyone, we'll bring it back.
Okay, so in that case, we'll approve them sometime before they expire. Okay, approve and sign liquor site license renewal application for Lindsay Davis doing business as a sandbar. I move, we sign the liquor license renewal application,
Second.
seconded by Pam Alley. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay, I have that. Let's see here, yep, right here. We'll sign that at the end of the meeting as well. Approve and sign annual town election warrant for June 8th.
So
Now, as you said, Jake made a motion, I'll second it. All those in favor? Okay, all right,
So that makes us up to 3 things we gotta sign at the end of the meeting.
yes. Caring Place Bridge Bond, RFP opening approval.
I did put out after our last meeting, before our last meeting, an RFP for bonds for the bridge. We never, we hadn't finalized that yet, so I did put those out there. I sent it to 3 banks that we have accounts with and that we've been working with and have been receiving the responses from. So Camden, the First, and Machias. I did call Machias today because I hadn't seen anything, and they hadn't sent something in. So there's two responses that we got, putting that out there. I'll just zoom in on that. So I asked we were authorized by the voters for up to 20 years for a term. And so I asked them for 10, 15, and 20 years to see if there'd be difference in the rates. You see Camden's provided a rate for all of the term periods. And then the First is giving us 3 different rates for each of one for each of the terms. The second table shows you what the interest payment would be in total over that period of time. And you'll notice that Camden's in the 15 and 20 years is substantially different than the First. And I guess what they're proposing in theirs with that fixed amount, that interest, a fixed interest, no matter what term you select, is these balloon payments after 10 years for both the 15 and 20 year terms. They didn't provide a schedule, so I don't know, an amortization schedule, so I don't know actually what the annual payments would be, at least in that balloon year. So I would want to follow up with them just to see what that looks like, but you can see there's a substantial difference in the interest over that time, even by taking the higher rate. So the average 15 and 20 year payment that I have down below is only taking the the total interest plus the principal at 550,000 and dividing it equally. Not a fair representation of what the annual payment would be, because it would be that one balloon payment at the 10-year mark. But the first did provide their amortization schedule. And so those were the numbers that came from them that we would have for an annual payment for those periods.
Okay, so the first, that 10-year, the 63, that's the annual payment.
Yep.
Interest plus principal.
Correct.
Are we gonna need the whole 550? Wasn't the bid for 4 or something?
Yeah, by the time you have the other fees and permit fees and engineering
pretty
fees,
close.
I think it came in at 555 actually.
Okay.
But we did have a reserve fund already created that had some money in it that, we would loan the 550 and use the reserve fund as, money towards that payment, or part of that overage. When it first came back to us, remember, I think it was like 750.
Yeah, I remember.
So they were able to get the contractor to work it. So yeah, that's where they're at. And there is, there is some in the reserve fund that we can look at when we go to debt service later on in the meeting for the budget part that we can talk about. But there was about a little over 60,000, almost 70,000 that we show in the reserve fund.
Do we have to make a decision on this tonight? Because it's kind of hard without knowing what the balloon payment is to.
Yeah, we have the
Let's
rate.
see what Machias savings says as well. It's always good to have another.
Well, typically when you put the bid out and have an opening period set, they've got to,
Oh,
they were asked to have
It's
it
already
in today.
closed, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I'd just be curious, it seems like we might want to stretch it out to get the, the lower payments on a 20-year note, if it's really only gonna be an extra $5,000 a year. Or, not even $3,000 a year. It goes up from 130 to 145, that's for 5 years. That's why I'm just curious about, what those balloon payments actually look like.
Right, yeah,
Presumably they will send you that information, won't they?
I
Should.
asked for amortization schedule in the RFP and I actually didn't get it. I didn't open it until almost 5 o'clock today, so just being respectful of the process that we put out there. So for Camden, they need notice of acceptance by May 2nd, and I think the first was May 7th.
So we pretty much have to make a decision tonight then.
pretty much.
Second is a Sunday, yeah.
What bank is open on a Sunday?
Oh, banks are open every day, aren't they?
That's what the letter we had
Either Sunday
received.
or Monday.
Sunday.
Okay,
I mean, with that one balloon payment, in that 10th year, whether it's 15 or 20-year term, as you can see, if you go to a 20-year term, it's a substantial difference in the overall interest payment cost. In the 15 years, a little bit closer. It's a little less with Camden.
Sorry. So if we did take out a 10-year note, there wouldn't be a balloon payment. I'm not suggesting we do that, but if you
Right.
pay it off within 10 years. But that obviously adds quite a bit to the yearly.
Well, you're gonna save a lot in interest though, that's
Over the long term, we'll save a significant sum of money.
right.
We'll save more than 50,000, 60,000, just about $60,000.
Right.
If you look at First National Bank,
Well, if you go to 20 years, you're saving over 100,000.
right? And projecting we wait 20 years. Pay off.
The only thing I worry about is we have a lot of other projects that we want
No, you're right.
that we wanna do to put this all in the first 10 years.
Yeah, I
Gonna be a
agree
lot.
with
Unless we're gonna push off some other projects.
which,
I have,
Well, we can't, some of them.
Well, that's what I mean.
and the other point of paying over a longer time is that this is a 70 or 80-year project, right? Like, this is something that,
It's supposed to be.
oh, yeah.
like, this is something that, the 3-year-olds right now will worry about.
Right.
That this is-
Oh, yeah, Lord willing.
And 20 years from now, we'll still have a lot of life left, yeah.
Purposeful, the purposes.
I would think we would take the Camden one for 20 years and stretch it out because it wasn't a whole lot different than the Machias one for 15 years, but that would just be.
So again, when I put the Camden, probably shouldn't have put it in there, not knowing the 15 and 20 year with that.
No, I'm just talking about the interest.
Oh, yeah,
The total
right,
interest, that's
right.
all I'm talking about. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about how much the payment is every year. I was just talking about just the difference in the interest.
Overall.
payment.
But I
Yeah.
guess eventually they have to provide us with that balloon payment will be, right?
Right.
So it sounds like we pay regular payments through the first 10 years, then there's a balloon payment.
It's probably, you pay the whole year at the beginning of the loan, so that interest doesn't run on that. So like if you had a $50,000 a year payment and you're paying, $4,000 a month
Right.
for the first 10 years, then
After
the
that,
balloon
you-
payment would probably be that 50,000 like at the beginning of the year, so the interest doesn't, or maybe half of it or something. I mean,
Right.
There's
that's
another-
what I'm thinking. That's how they could do it. I mean, how else could they make those numbers look like that?
The other solution is, because they didn't include that information, and that's pretty important, go back out to bid.
Yeah.
And-
Maybe then we get a
And make sure in our
response
bid
back.
document, like, we need, there's only one financial wizard here.
But they should, he asked for an amortization schedule, that's what they should have included. I don't
Right,
see why they
it's-
didn't do that.
Well, I'm not surprised,
I'm
but
not surprised.
So what
either.
do you suggest? Should we just take one or should we rebid it or,
I mean, it'd be nice to know what exactly the
That's what I was
balloon amount would
thinking
be
too,
at
I mean.
10 years, just to know. But, when,
we don't meet again before the 7th.
How
we could
how
either
can we
do
make
it-
a decision not knowing what the
But-
financial terms are? Like, I don't.
right, I mean, just the difference in those two institutions there, even with a higher percentage, I mean, when you get to 15 years, it's relatively close in percentage, and then when you get if you take a 20-year note out, it's a substantially different interest rate on that kind of money, and you can see that. I mean, just the overall difference, I mean, that for that 1-year balloon, I mean, it's just a matter of, that's why I put up that other.
But I mean, it's gonna be in the budget either way, if it comes out of our account monthly or all at once at the beginning of the payment, so it's not really gonna make a big deal on the budget.
Isn't it odd that the balloon isn't specified?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just bad.
I don't think putting out the bid is a bad idea, rebid rather.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so.
This is
It's
what
just
we-
more work.
This is what we have kind of outstanding at the moment, what we've committed to. I mean, obviously, these were what I put in for the budget period, this year's budget process is a placeholder, assuming a potential 10-year payoff of the bridge, and I know we haven't set that, but it gives you an idea. The other one, so when we paid off the small dump truck, as well as the Western Star this year. So outstanding, we still have the 2014 paving, the 2019 paving, and then the public works facility.
And we did 15 on that, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So these are the annual, these columns each show again the annual payment for each of those loans. But so just kind of gives an idea of what we have. What I don't have in this thing is showing kind of the ones that we have coming that we just don't know right now what all would be for loans. I mean, we know we've got a substantial number of capital projects to think about. And presumably another paving project next year. Hopefully the downtown one can be successful in all the grants that have been written and we can use the cash for it, but we still have some sidewalks to tend to, we still have some marine railways to work on. So there are other ones that we need to be mindful of when we're looking at the payment schedule. But that just gives you an idea, at least today, what it looks like, where some of those will drop off. In 2025, you have the 2014 paving at 65 or almost 66,000. You're on with that one still for a couple more years.
I mean, that 10-year one with the 2 point something percent, we know what those are, I mean.
That, like, based on what we have here, I would say we go with the 10-year, but again, I realize we do have other projects, we don't quite know the magnitude of everything yet. So-
But those probably wouldn't kick in until, like you said, maybe when some of that other stuff is coming off too, hopefully.
There's only,
That paving project was,
I mean, if we did 15 years on the new garage, I don't think we should be doing 20 on a.
well, the bridge is gonna last longer
the
than
bridge
garage.
is a much longer lifespan.
Right, but we shouldn't take that long to pay it off, I feel.
well, there's always the option to try and also, once we get some of these committed and done in the term, the paperwork signed on the projects and the projects completed, there's also always a possibility of
Bundling.
trying to consolidate and putting all of them out to refinance.
Do any
all
of
of
these
them.
have early prepayment penalties?
I'd have to double check.
I don't know how often the town
I
prepay something to get out of paying it future interest. but-
Yeah, I didn't, I can't recall exactly if I put that in there.
it seems to me, going back out to bid, you know, and that way we have all the information, because paying it off in 10 years with everything else that we have doesn't seem like the most responsible thing to do.
You can see the difference there is gonna be 20, almost 20 or 30 grand difference, depending on the term you select, from 10 years to either 15 or 20.
Yeah, the monthly payment,
Yeah.
it's, to me, it's the right annual payment. I always look at the total interest rates, I can't stand paying interest, but that's just me personally. So, no, I agree, it's probably best to do that up a bit.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna have some major, and we still don't know for sure if we're going to get all the grant funding for downtown.
Right.
And I think as a board, we're pretty well committed to, even if we don't get that grant funding, still doing a significant project on Down Street.
Yeah.
We have a plan like we're not gonna get it.
We should plan as if we're not going to get the money.
Well, you guys had already, visited that and, and had cut out a couple seconds, at least one section that you thought we could do without for right now. And, with the other grants that became available that we applied for, we added it back in, obviously, to make them more competitive and.
Right, but in the case we don't get, if we don't get this money, then we
Right.
don't get the money, and now we're really gonna have some hard discussions.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you guys went through and cut out what you felt you could for now, at least, so that, potentially revisit in the future, I think it was still about $4 million for downtown, because it's not just as simple as just fixing the sidewalk. It's the drainage, it's the sidewalk, it's the water main.
I mean, and we've only got 1.6 committed, right? We got the 625,000 from the state. Is that
Yeah, a
correct?
little
And then
over-
the 1 million that we
A
had.
little over $1 million from us. I think our all in right now, match, including the water district, I think, Dave, is that like 1.9 or 2? That we, between us and the water district.
Yeah, she gave me the thumbs up here, oh, perfect, yeah. Well, I move we don't accept any of these bids, and we put it back out to bid,
And
to rebid, excuse me. Okay, it's been seconded by Phil Crossman. Any more discussion?
what kind of date do we want to put on that? How
Right,
long did
yeah.
we put on it last time, Andy? Was it a month or 2 weeks or?
I think I had just over 2 weeks. I put it out on the 12th, just over 2 weeks.
So when do we meet again? We meet on the 11th?
We'll meet the 11th. I won't have time to put it back out until Thursday at the earliest, which is less than 2 weeks before the next meeting. So realistically, it'd either be the 18th if you want to put a meeting on the 18th or wait till the 25th.
I move we put this back out to rebid with a due date of the 25th.
Second.
How about if we have it on the 24th, so that gives Andy a day to open them and make, if they don't send an amortization
Oh, yeah, I
schedule.
can
Presumably,
make it the same day. And
Huh?
I can make it the same day if I just make it in the afternoon.
well, I
put
meant like at this
together.
time, you said you just opened them before the meeting, and like maybe you could have called and got that scheduled so we have more information. But
Yeah,
that's why I was thinking,
Okay,
maybe, can we make it Monday?
I'll make it the 24th.
in case they don't put everything.
Okay, now it's been seconded by Phil Cross. I'm not making another motion. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Are you gonna do G and H?
Yeah.
Did you do that?
We haven't, well, we're still on F now. On my alphabet, we have to go through F before we get to J.
Yeah.
Where am I?
We just did E.
Now we're doing MSAD.
I don't know, I went to Vinalhaven High School, and there they taught us that.
Let me see. Don't be a smart ass.
So are there anyone, is the person that was interested before still interested
We just did Carrington
Okay.
Bridge.
for the?
Oh, I see,
My
I'm in the
open
wrong
to the school?
place. Pardon me.
Remember, we had
My-
2 people last time.
Oh,
Yeah, isn't that next on the list, or am I wrong?
yeah, once the chair moves to the next.
All right. Guys. Well, Pam is still young. Let's go on to F, MSAD RSU 8 Board of Directors vacancy, call for candidates.
So the superintendent sent an email today and anticipated opening, and he confirmed that they did accept a resignation at their meeting last week. So there's there'll be an unfilled vacancy for that again. We just did this not too long ago. There's not enough time between now and June's election to be able to have them go through the process of having someone take out papers and get a ballot ready to be available for the June election. So it'd be the November election, would be the next regular scheduled one. So at this point, between now and the next meeting, if you wanted to make it so that anyone interested could let it be known and share that with the board here, and then you guys can, determine and provide that to the school board.
Yep.
So
How do you put that out there? You just throw
last time I think we threw wind ads, you can put it online, the school and through, we'll put it out the way they
do
do.
whatever you did last time.
Yeah, that's, see,
We got two or three last time at least.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity between that,
Did
June
we
and
tell them
November
if
to
they
be
liked
able to try it, and for anyone interested in it, and for a few months at least.
And then they can always run if they liked it, right?
Okay. Now we want to do the thoroughfare float.
I think that's only because of me. I had a phone call from somebody.
I did too, Jay.
Okay, and I was hoping that I was gonna hear back from them, because they said that Boy built some new float for some summer people and that there might be one available. And I said, well, if there is one, that's relatively cheap, because that last float was like 20 grand, wasn't it?
The estimate for the one with the metal top, was 15.
Yeah,
And
so
the wooden one would have been closer to 10.
I said, well, I told them that we were talking, it was between putting another float up there or putting it in the main harbor, and we decided for this year to spend the money to put it in the main harbor, but that if Boy really did have one, to get back to me, and we would consider it, but they didn't get back to me. They said they would, and I haven't heard from them, so maybe we should just push it to the next.
She called me about
She did. Does Boy definitely have a float?
Yeah, I have an update on that. I don't know if you wanted to talk more generally about a second float in general up there, but I did actually already say yes to Boyd's offer.
Okay.
I'd asked him, it was within what we have appropriated for this year's maintenance line for the thoroughfare lease, to be able to put it in for this summer. He says it'll work for this summer, at the very least.
But no guarantee.
No guarantee that it'll survive the winter. That's what happened with the last one that we had up there, before the replacement one we put up there. We got, I think, another summer out of it. It was taken into one of the coves, brought back, and didn't come back. It just didn't weather the winter. So at this point, he offered one. He feels confident that it'd be safe and serviceable for the summer. And it was within what we could afford to do for this year's budget. So I said, go ahead, and he says within the next couple of weeks, it should be good to go.
What was
it.
the
But that would be
price?
hauled out for winter, right?
Correct.
It's just, yeah. Because when she called me, she said there's like 20 floats there in the summer, and sometimes Boy can't get in. And I just said I'd put it on the agenda, so I did what I said.
I mean, it does warrant, it kind of kicks the can another year potentially, but, warrant the discussion of, an additional float and improving infrastructure up there generally.
I thought we were supposed, I told them I thought we were supposed to be having some kind of a joint meeting with their select board to discuss this future funding also. I did mention that, so.
Yeah, that's one I forgot to mention before. Rick and I, Rick, the manager up there, did want to propose that the two boards, you guys have mentioned it before, they've mentioned it before, just getting together as boards, and having conversation around a shared topic. And so we thought around the thoroughfare use was one that we could start with. If that's something you wanted to try and have a joint meeting in May or June with them on. We suggested it. They meet weekly, we, obviously every other week. But if we wanted to throw a date in there to meet with them, I can.
When do they meet?
I think they meet either Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I can't remember now. They had changed it in the last year. But either way, so if we meet again, regular meeting on the 11th, the next one will be the 25th. You want to aim for one of your regular meetings, or one of your off weeks and meet when they meet?
A week good just to do an off week, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it might make sense to do it, the conversation might go on for a while.
Right. You want to shoot for that week of the 17th?
Sounds good to
That
me.
works
sounds good to me.
I can't think of anything that I have. There's something on the 15th, but that's all I got.
I can propose that with him if you want. I think they either meet Tuesdays or Wednesdays, so.
Do they meet? They don't meet at like 7 or 8 o'clock, do they? They must meet at 6 or so, probably, I would think.
I don't recall off the top of my head.
I mean, if it's just gonna be on one topic, it shouldn't
Yeah.
last more than an hour anyway, should it? I would
I
think.
hope so.
But I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm mindful of the last time the Board of Selectmen went up there and made a proposal to don't know if it was a selectmen meeting or not, but anyway, it was back a long time ago. And the response was not as constructive as I hope it will be.
I mean, I think, Rick and I see there's a lot of different things that the boards could be talking about, because there are actually, quite a few ways in which, we're equally impacted or have, things that we share, but, we, between he and I, we can kind of help try to keep it focused on the thoroughfare
I
infrastructure.
assume it's gonna be a Zoom meeting.
That'd be the easiest, and then people could still join. I mean, I don't think either of us have a space.
I could just wait till Cal Lewis Hall opens and go down and enjoy it.
Yeah, well,
So I'll follow up with him on that. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Well, that's what I told the caller when I had the call. I said, we're gonna discuss this with the North Haven board at some point also.
okay, all right, sorry, downtown marine railway. I just realized that we wanted to finish up the budget as well, and it's nowhere on the agenda.
Oh.
But at any rate, downtown marine railway.
Well, I asked that we put on the agenda because we talked about it before several times over the last couple of years now. I think it's deteriorating dangerously because I've seen some accidents down there. And in the last month, as it happens, I saw two people, lobstermen, both of them, fall because they get their foot stuck in they're launching their boats or tending to the boats, and they get the foot stuck in one of those broken members. So anyway, we had talked about it earlier, and Andy had gotten a price that was like 170 or something like that for all three railways.
Just the one.
Which is like for one railway. And so I just couldn't believe it. And so I went to see Kevin because I've always been so impressed with his conservatism when it comes to estimating. He never seems to pad anything. And he came back with $22,000. And all he's asking be done beforehand is excavation, and excavation is nominal, and prep, base prep. And from what I've learned working for him, we would get exactly what we expect from him, and a very well done job.
The only question I have is, did this just go out as part of one of the bid proposals that Gabe put out there for a grant?
Yeah.
Should we wait for
downtown
that to
project.
come back first before we do it? I don't know. That's the only-
$100,000 less, though, it seems.
Yeah. But I mean, will that affect our grant if we?
I mean, we put it out there. I would recommend you wait and see if you get awarded the grant before pulling the trigger on anything. Just because it's part of it, and if
When is that grant? Is that the
the EDA one, that one, I think, was it July? Gabe, do you recall when?
Yeah, that would be the NBRC grant, and I don't think, I think I think it's July or early August.
So what if, that was just for the one downtown, right?
The one by the paved parking lot, yeah.
Right.
So Phil, did he give any indication of a timeline when he'd be able to do the work if we did want it done? Oh, you just got the estimate?
It's just the estimate.
Yeah,
But I certainly would be happy to talk to him about that.
he's so busy, it might be something that he couldn't do for a while, so.
Right.
Well, we do need to be two, I mean, I thought earlier.
There's
you had
two
mentioned it was-
railways.
Well, yeah, the two downtown and one of the thoroughfare. I thought you had mentioned earlier that it was inclusive of all the work, and I just want to make sure I'm clear. And you had mentioned just now that it was without, we'd have to additionally, with that price, factor in the prep work and removal of what's there now, right?
Well, I showed that to you. It's excavation and base prep by others.
Right.
But
And I assume it's minimal, but I assume transportation of the materials that aren't on the island already would have to be included as well.
oh, that's here.
That's already
The
included.
material and delivery is budgeted at 2,200. Delivery material. Can you say it again?
Yeah, we can look at it, continue to look at it. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we submitted for a grant, if it comes in that there's a better price to do it, I mean, one thing to be thinking of, if we get grant funds from state and federal sources, there are processes we have to do in order to spend those and show that you're meeting the requirements for the federal and state funds. So no matter what, we're going to be well above the $250,000 threshold for downtown. So the funds that are coming in there will require us to go out to bid. And now that we've included it in one of the grants, I guess I'm not sure where we would stand if we modified that grant request now and took that component out, and what that might do for grant funding. If there's a bidding process that that project requires, then
I was just
we'd
wondering
have
if
to
you
put it out there that way through that project and have it done that way. So it's still possible, but I mean, it's up to you guys. And maybe gave us a better sense, but I would be cautious to remove it from a grant that we just submitted as part of a grant component, and say yes on any of it right now. But I would just say, let's pause and wait. If there's things we can do in the meantime to try and patch something that's actually broken, we can certainly look to do that in the short term. We've done that on the other ones.
Tell me again when the expected response for the grant application is?
For that one, it's midsummer. For that one, it's midsummer. It's part of a much larger ask and other grants that are out there for the whole downtown project. But for that particular grant we applied for, it'd be midsummer.
would it be a problem to move that money to the other railway that's by Beans? Because it's both in the downtown part that we're gonna be working on, correct?
Yeah, I think the way we wrote that one, Gabe, wasn't that one more?
Yeah, as part of raising the parking lot, so that idea of adding the parking lot components back in, which is what we did for the MBRC grant, because that's what we took out for the EDA grant. And we voted, or you guys voted to add the boat ramp to that as part of the parking, sort of raising and enhancing the parking lot while we were doing the parking lot work. Presumably, if we get the funding to do it, that would be a good time to do the boat ramp as well.
Would we be jeopardizing the award of the grant if at this point we amended it to remove, for example, that element?
It's possible.
Yeah. Do you have a thought about that, Gabe?
I mean, it's not what we proposed it the way it would be different than the way we proposed it. I don't know as it's going to jeopardize, but I mean, it's probably best not to change it. But I guess it, sort of up to you about like how urgent. And I mean, just one thing to consider too, of like the whole thing with all the reason why, like, why haven't we done the sidewalks yet? I mean, these are all presumably components of a larger project. So investing money into the boat launch without knowing what is happening with the parking lot, or what kind of changes are going to be made to the parking lot. Again, if we get the funding, just the idea that whole, if we get the funding, the entire thing would be engineered as opposed to just like single components of it. So that just might be a consideration too, of just like, but again, like if it's urgent and there's huge issues with it that need to be addressed. I mean, could say the same things for the sidewalks.
I mean, I went and looked at it, both of them downtown, and the one by the dirt parking lot, the old fish plant, is in worse condition than the one near the paved parking lot. And I actually didn't see, there's gaps in between. There's the precast, if you haven't looked at that close, there's precast concrete blocks that are pinned together, and most of the hardware is rusted away in places. And so, at one point, obviously when it was new, they probably had it so the gaps weren't noticed because they were backfilled with some sort of gravel or stone, I imagine. So over the years, that's kind of washed away. But the gaps are, what, inch and a half, maybe 2 inches generally between the blocks.
would have thought there was more than that, but maybe I should pay more attention.
I mean, I guess I didn't think the spacing was so dramatic. I mean, I walked down, it wasn't low tide. I know if you get down way at low tide, it substantially drops off. So you shouldn't try to do that at a dead low tide, but in terms of like really walking it back and forth, I guess I didn't see deficiencies in that one. The other one certainly does. The other one's got sections of the precast missing and rebar showing that we do need to go back in and fill again. You know, we can temporarily fill it with cold patch. That holds for, that's held on the other one for 2-3 years now. It's not a permanent solution, but it does, if there's an immediate need, we can do that.
I think at this point, we just should be mindful of this alternative, and it would probably apply to the second railway as well.
Right.
And the savings are certainly significant.
Right. I'd like to explore more complete costs, and it certainly sounds like it's shaping up to be much cheaper still, but it's still parts of that aren't included that,
Yeah,
you know, excavation isn't gonna be nothing. You know, it's gonna be some work to get all that out of there and to get the permitting that's gonna be required to do it. I mean, frankly, there's a lot missing out of that. That's part of the project total, that we need to have a better sense of.
Yeah.
I think we should wait on the grant before we touch that one. I mean,
Yeah.
we should patch it if there's a big hole in it, we should
I
send
mean,
it.
we can definitely do that, and it's
But that's the only thing that I'm worried about is just, we should wait until the summer. Maybe we can fix it in the fall or next spring. I mean, I'm sure Kevin's quote won't change that much in 3 or 4 months, or I don't assume it to. I hope.
Even if it was pushed to next year, I would think his quote would be still pretty close to what it.
Yeah. I mean,
What kind of
it might-
permit is required?
working in the water. You know, you'll need state permits like we did for the bridge. I mean, you're gonna be working below the high tide line. You know, so you'll need permitting, below low tide line. You'll need permitting, you know, from the state to be able to do that.
Probably Army Corps.
Army Corps. I mean, again, it's good as a reference, I think, as a starting point to understand that, you know, we can certainly look at, maybe there's other ways and cheaper ways to do it, but, you know, it's not a complete cost. Put it that way, hopefully.
Yeah, but it's still considerably lower than what some other estimate that we had. I mean, even if it's double that.
Right, so, and again, to be perfectly upfront, the estimate that we hadn't included in the grant was based on a project done a few years ago in some other town with some factors assumed for inflation over the last few years, and then the island factor of which we wouldn't have there, the island factor of logistics and lodging and of what you might have from an off-island. So they, for the grant purposes, put a number in there on like 3 days notice, I think, just for the sake of trying to strengthen that grant application. You know, and so, yes, there's probably room to review that one as there is this one here.
Well, like I said, let's just be mindful of this and that it exists. And as far as being the safety issue, certainly the safety is the little mishaps that I saw could be taken care of, as you say, with some cold patch or something. But it's important to be mindful of it, that's all.
You know, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Because we can find savings.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're gonna get very mad if we, before report town manager, we finish up the budget. Might as well,
I thought we were supposed to anyway.
there was supposed to be a budget workshop.
Yeah, it's my mistake not putting it in there.
So I believe we're on the cemeteries tab. And we will have to visit planning for 1B5 of that housing request. But that's a very quick, that $5,000.
We're starting with cemeteries.
We'll start with cemeteries though.
Does the budget committee have any changes on this line, Andy, or have they not reviewed it?
Again, they chose a different review process after they didn't have any substantial questions or changes to this one. I don't know if they had any questions about this one. Just 1 second, I'll pull up the budget sheets.
Basically, the only change is increasing the stipend.
That was last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was last year. The budget is actually pretty much $50 less than last year.
say, I mean, this one's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah. Any questions? Fran?
Just trying to get back so I can share the screen so others can see what we're talking about.
Did we have the digitizing of the cemetery maps? Was that in last year or is it something new? I know we've been talking about it.
It's in the current year.
I think in this one.
That's something between the Historical Society and the Master Fellowship, we're planning to do.
Okay.
That's every headstone though, right?
That was, so the Historical Society's already embarked on a project where they were photographing all the headstones and I think hand drawing all the lots again in some cases. And so what we're hoping to do is create a digital record of it, like using GIS, and then it'd be a database that they could use, we could use. So if a cemetery lot sells, we'd be able to enter it in there and have that data in that software to be able to show it. And so it's just, kind of, it solves multiple things there, but recognizing the work the Historical Society was putting into already doing and having the photos and all the other work they were putting into it. This year's budget takes into consideration that work and we still got to get that to them, but it's work for what they have been doing and have continued to do. And then with Matt's fellowship and the GIS work, he'll be able to take what they're doing and put it into a GIS format or file.
I move we approve the cemetery budget at $53,800.
Second.
Seconded by Pam Allen. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay, library.
What is the current plan on opening or reopening, or are they open? I don't keep track, I guess.
I honestly haven't had a chance to talk to Scott. He was out for a few days, I think last week, and the plan is to move ahead with the reopening, I think at some point in May, last I heard. So I just need to follow up with him on that more specifically to find out what the thoughts are.
Well, I definitely think they should be reopening at some point.
Yeah, again, all of it comes back to the guidelines that they've got to follow to and, looking at when people are in there and, he's just following it closely, but yeah, everyone, even they are wanting to be open again, so that's where they're headed.
What's the difference in the service fee line between manager and department?
There must be a couple small things to be asking of them. It's like $1,600.
I'm thinking the Seacoast might have been a slightly higher number. I off the top of my head, I don't have it back in here to see what the difference is. I think, when he puts it together, he came up with 90/40. I had 1066 or $10,660 there. That's what the column there adds up to. I don't remember exactly what he hadn't had. It might have been, I can't remember.
Do you have an update on what the fiscal year for 21 is? I know this is only.
In front of me at the moment, I do not.
I was wondering if we would need, because even in 1920, we're only about between 3,000 and 3,400. They asked it over 10 now, do we need that? But not a big difference between.
So there's, so if we look more specifically at the service fees page, there's some things in there that we don't know if we'll use all of, like the computer tech. That $4,000 of the 10 is computer IT work. And they've got a fair amount of computers in there. Haven't been open this year, so certainly haven't spent a lot of it this year. That was an amount that increased in the last, probably 3 years ago. What I try to do is I try to budget 3 hours per computer, period, just across the board, so there's kind of a consistent number for any computer we have, an average of 3 hours a year for IT support on. You know, there is setup still required for some of the computers we bought last year for them, but I hadn't been hoping we hadn't actually installed them yet, so that one's likely to have most of it spent before the year's out. The Follets was one that we budgeted for this year, and I don't think I know we're not live yet, last I knew, with the online with ebooks, but that's a fee to support that, last I believe.
The website replacement rebuild, is
That didn't happen, it's still in limbo, and so we're working with the trustees to be able to do that still, so they didn't actually do it this year, and so one thing I'm trying to get them to look at and consider is using the town's website, so that's one that was included last year, and they aren't certain exactly where they're headed yet, but my thought was, and suggestion was, when last we talked, was to look at ways to improve the town's page on our website for the library page on our website, to include some things there, and then to think about using the Friends website, which was recently redone, as a place for maybe some more of the programmatic and dynamic, changes, calendar events potentially. Because otherwise you've got the page on the town's website that needs to stay updated, their own website potentially that would need to stay updated, and then the Friends would be 3 for the one. So we talked about that. So that's one that is proposed to stay in there to have an amount to support that work if that's where they choose to go.
that makes sense. I mean, there's no sense
And that didn't get spent this year either. At this point, it was in there. I mean, it was that $3,000 wasn't in there in those previous 2 years you mentioned either.
Okay.
That's one that hopefully after next year wouldn't need to be in there.
Okay.
The computer tech, if we continue not to have high computer needs, then we could certainly look at lowering that in the future year. Or if you want to consider doing it this year, you certainly could.
No, I'm fine.
The rest of them
You're
are
gonna
pretty-
need, we're gonna need tech support, we're gonna need maintenance on that side, so it's necessary to have it in there.
Yeah, I think those are the 2 big ones, I guess, the internet and the website and the computer tech.
Okay, I move we approve the library budget at $108,340.
Second.
Seconded by Phil Crossman. Any more discussion?
Do they track like how many people use all these things they get, different online things to make sure that they get their money's worth, like the ebooks and all that stuff?
They can, they haven't, I don't think they've made the ebooks fully
Not doing it
available
anymore,
yet.
I'd just be curious to see how many people use all the different,
Yeah.
which parts are more used and which parts are less used at the
Yeah, and
library. Simple.
in the annual report, Scott presents some of those numbers for the year in there.
I know this year will be a little different, but
Yeah.
that's all I have.
That's another one, I think the ebooks is one that he was hoping to see launch this spring. It was a timing with the vendor, I guess, to do it at a certain time of the year. They've gone through and cleaned out some of the subscription holders or users and reset some of those, because some of them were on the list still that aren't still here, one way or the other, haven't been active for a long time, so they kind of got that number down a little bit to be able to go into the program. So that's the last I had heard on that, and I'll double check and see where that is, but he was hoping to see that available this spring.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay, donations. So the only addition here would potentially be donating to the MLA legal fund. I meant to look at what other towns donated and I didn't. Does anyone else have an idea of what, Jake, maybe you have an idea what other towns might do?
I mean, I think our co-op did $500 or dollars, I
I think
think.
they did, yeah.
I think some towns did 500 and some other towns did 1,000, I think. I mean, that was generally the range, if they even gave anything, period.
I mean, and the other ones that are already included are ones that
been for a while.
Yeah,
We're not looking to reduce or keep it the same. If we add this in, it would just be an increase, right?
yeah, it's been increased, yeah.
I make a motion, we add a line to the donations to the MLA legal fund of $1,000.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Been seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, and I move we approve the donations line at $4,000 then.
Second.
Can I add,
Yes,
second,
someone seconded it.
what's the health? The third one from the bottom,
Health and quality license, that.
yeah, what is? There was nothing and then suddenly there's $500.
It was a pretty new request, I think.
What's that?
I think it was a new request from, there was one from $107 a couple of years
Right.
ago.
Isn't it a percentage of something maybe? Wasn't that what it was before? Isn't that why it was 107? Or am I not thinking right?
Possible. Some of them do it based on a percentage of population, some of them do it based on percentage of services provided. I don't have in front of me. Here's their website. I'll just pull up quick. I don't have the request in front of me, it's at my desk. So again, they're a Midcoast group, direct service and advocacy with and on behalf of people in Maine who live with HIV, people who use drugs, and our LGBTQ plus community.
Quite a broad bunch of issues.
I think maybe our interest last year was they do offer Narcan
Yeah.
administration, do maybe something along those lines.
Substance abuse treatment
Yeah, okay.
or support.
Was this something brought to us by the, I can't even remember the acronym they had. I don't even,
That's still,
What?
that nonprofit still going, that local nonprofit for substance abuse?
Here?
Yeah.
was that something they brought to us a couple of years ago? Was it, or it just?
Was it something what?
This is Lime Street.
No, I mean, it's kind of a Midcoast nonprofit and, we get anywhere from, you see the list on there, we did a range of unsolicited requests. These are all the ones in the last few years that we have had at one point. Where they're a mid-coast group, and I think what the board in the past has seen that those are services worthwhile for people from Vinalhaven to have access to. That's where it's been supported. I think when the CARES group was going on, that was something that had general support, from the CARES group, but it certainly aligns with what that group locally was trying to help accomplish as well.
I was just curious.
All right, so the motion was seconded for $4,000. Any more discussion? All those in favor? All right, now, we did do planning at our last meeting, but what we did forget to do, there was a request from the housing committee for $5,000 for a housing study.
Yep.
And we told Ellen we would consider it, and then we didn't. I'll take the blame,
Definitely your fault.
but Andy and I were talking earlier, and planning seems like the best department to put it under. So I move we add, it was a housing study, correct?
It was an assessment of the housing needs on the
Housing
island. So that was, they just met yesterday. I don't know if Alan's still on. They just met yesterday as a committee, maybe the second time this month at least. And so they're more active. They did bring me their new documents and their mission, what they're focusing on doing. And so the housing assessment is kind of the first step. It's going to give qualitative data. They're still looking at, once they get that, through a series of interviews and talking to landlords and talking to people looking for housing, and likely, they still need to define the full scope, but even likely to look at elderly population to understand better some of their needs through a series of interviews and surveys. So we have something that the committee would have something to present to the board with some method behind it. It could be used as information for any potential grants or any cases in the, going ahead. What would be missing would be quantitative data, using census data, using other housing study data that might be out there. And that's not something that would be part of the assessment. So initially, what Ellen had found was a housing study, would be likely in the ballpark of $5,000 to conduct. There is likely, or at least an opportunity, a request from, at the Island Institute for some funding potentially towards our housing work. It's not guaranteed at the moment, but it is something that's being considered. So that could help go towards that as well. So when it came, if that doesn't come in, it was up to $5,000 to be able to do all that work that would support the committee that the board's supportive of. So I would just suggest it comes out of the fund balance. It would be a 1-year project. We've got the ability to do that. If any of the grant funds come in or other funds become available, then the money just goes back to fund balance. So.
Well, I mean, it would be a good jumping off point when they do a quantitative analysis of the census. I mean, to know, I mean, everyone knows there's a need for this out here. So there's not enough rents and there's not enough houses and not enough everything.
It's a very complex issue right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's just Vinalhaven. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I know rents are hard to find in Rockland and
Yeah.
I don't know, probably everywhere on the coast. Maybe everywhere.
Okay, I move we add $5,000 to come out of fund balance from the planning department, which will increase that total to $95,142.
Second.
Seconded by Phil Crossman. Any more discussion? All those in favor? All right, and now for the final two items, both of which are what they are. We want the debt service. Although we don't.
So that Carrying Place Bridge number won't be any higher than that. It looks like it's probably gonna be lower than that number, right? I mean, those bids that you had came in lower than the 70,000, correct?
It presumably would be lower, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't have to adjust it. I mean,
No, we can adjust, we can keep that total.
no, that's what I mean. I mean, we don't have to go up because we know what those numbers are gonna look like now. Like,
Yeah, I think the 10-year payback was in the mid
it's like
60,000.
66 or 7, I thought. If I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, it's not higher than 7. Even if we go up to bid and the rates have changed a couple
Right.
hundredths of a point or tenths of a point.
Right. Well, I move we approve the debt service line at $346,500.
Second.
Seconded by Donna Poole.
You wanna talk about what wouldn't be, as I mentioned before in a previous budget meeting, the need for other capital work that would be loaned, like another road project. It's not included in here as consideration for a payment because there wouldn't be a payment in its first year. But it would need to be on the warrant presumably if we did want the town to consider allocating funds for a paving project. So it's not on the debt service as an allocation to be made, but it would need to be on the warrant. It's like, I know one of the roads you've talked about is around the Island Road is the next one to get substantial work done on. It doesn't stop you from approving this. I just wanted to make sure that it would be a future debt service thing.
Right.
So this is the time to bring that up.
So that's just something we'd have to have on
On the
for the town,
warrant.
on warrant for the town meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so at any rate, the 346,500 is what the number will be for this year anyway. That's the number we have to approve, and then.
Then that would be a separate warrant item to
Right,
ask
yeah,
if the town would
asking to
approve us
borrow.
to borrow up to. How much did you think that whole road would cost? Is it like $750,000 to do it right?
More. So when we did, not the state job, but the previous town job where we got the bids at $230 a ton. With I think if I got it right, roughly a 20-foot wide road, adding 2 inches of surface. All you're doing is just adding surface, no prep work, no base work. It was $250,000 a mile for just the pavement. And so that road's about 3 miles long. So it would be $750,000 at that price, assuming
Without doing
20 feet
anything.
wide. And you put 2 inches on there, it'd be $750,000 just to put a surface on it. And then we have to do, we're planning on trying to do some of the prep work this fiscal year and replacing culverts. So we're gonna try and chip away at it, but you're gonna have to do a reclamation on that road surface because there's places where you can't just do a shim anymore.
Right.
There's places where the road is shifting, there's places where it was never built right to begin with.
Well, Eric told us that they built part of the road out of hot,
That's gonna be the road.
on his old batch, didn't he, with the paving machine? Is that what he said at the last meeting?
Yeah.
Chip seal, I think.
No, I thought he said they used coal patch because they had their own paving machine on Vinalhaven and they didn't know what they were doing when they
Right.
built the road to the, from, I think from the Coke bottle to the dump or from
Yeah,
Denver Springs to the dump, wherever it had stopped before.
it was a Charlie chip seal, but
No.
that was a disaster.
So,
I can try and get I'll get a better number. I mean, my guess was that we were gonna be looking at close, in the $1 million ballpark to be able to do that road. And that's assuming the same per ton cost as we've had in the past.
Right,
No
which might be
changes
different.
in pricing or anything.
Right.
There does come a point where, if we do enough paving out here, presumably there would be a mobile plant, which would cut down on a lot of the barging. You could get more paving done in a day. On the mainland, they can run 25 to 30 trucks on a job, sometimes more, depending on the scale of the project. Out here, you get 9 a day. When you have to bring it back and forth, bring them 3 trucks per boat, per barge, you only get 9 trucks a day. So it extends the project, which has more lodging costs. Becomes harder to find contractors that want to do the job, which means you get a higher bid price.
So is this something that we should maybe put off this year and then do a bigger project the next
Yeah.
year so we could,
Get the mobile, so we could have that.
I mean, maybe could you inquire, like how much, like Lane or who was the last person people that outfit out of Winterport, what was that called?
I think it was Lane that did the.
No, the one that did the last summer, that wasn't Lane.
Oh, yeah, that don't.
It wasn't JBI, it was,
It was,
Mech, was it Mech, I don't know.
Out of Bangor area.
I thought it was Winterport or somewhere.
I can't remember the name.
But I mean, just how much in general would they need to come and set up a mobile plant? Like how many miles of road or how many dollars were, like maybe we could find that out. That might be a good starting point.
Yeah, it makes sense to do more in one.
Right, I was talking about maybe doing North Haven Road as well, like,
Well, I mean, presumably if you had that
Yeah,
out here,
just like-
you would do the 2 longest roads that you have to do.
right, and that would take care of most of town roads.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that maybe we should do our research and get it right
Yeah.
to fix the road up and then. How much could we get a warrant to get someone out here to do a study of the roads? How much was
Yeah,
that?
Dan asked for that. I think
That might be a
that's-
better thing to do first,
You don't
before
know.
we throw money at roads to know exactly what they need.
We discussed that. in the
Obviously, I'm
budget.
not a road expert. I know when they're not very good or they are good, that's all I know.
We already discussed that in the public works budget.
It is in the budget.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
can we just wait is that gonna be done over the summer and fall presumably?
Yeah,
We have it next February, so we can really make a good decision on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, what the road does and looks like and, how we can maintain it for another year, waiting another year. It's at that point, there's sections of that road that we should just go in there with whatever we can and rip up sections of it, because, you can't, they're not holes to patch, and there's sections, and so we'd have to, and we can look at it, and that's a possibility. It's just a matter of, what does that maintenance, what can we do in the meantime for some of those sections?
I would say we could do is for a year, just have.
Wasn't that what we did to the
Road, I
York
mean.
Road for a little bit? Wasn't that kind of not paved, wasn't it? Before, there was crushed rock at
We
the
had
end
to,
of it, I
for a
think.
short period of time, we had to put crushed rock over before they, so they could pave it.
But that was a very short period, that's
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Now, one of the thoughts I had was, potentially looking to have a company come out and do a reclamation on the road or roads that you want to have paved as like an initial phase, because we can maintain a gravel road. It's hard for us to at some point maintain the broken pavement that we have. Sections around the Island Road, there's sections of North Haven Road that are well beyond what just a cold mix will do or hot mix will do. So that was one thought, was do you do it in kind of 2 phases and just do the reclamation, which will allow you to do more prep work, before you put the asphalt down, try and go that route. And then you would ultimately have a couple of dirt roads that have been paved for a year or so. But it's something that can be maintained. We've got the grader, we've got gravel. It can be done. It's about what's better long-term. And so, some of this is, what we could get out of having someone with more experience telling us what we should or could do. The other part is just knowing what the funding looks like and the cost to do the work and being able to, they're not gonna be inexpensive, so.
But there's no sense to spend $750,000 to put 2 inches on it just to have it look like this again in 10 years.
Oh, no, the plan would have to be to do a reclamation on that, definitely. I mean, that's a given on that one.
At least on the stretch between the Coke bottle and the, I mean, I know there's other stretches, but that's probably one of the worst parts, isn't it? I mean, where that swamp is, and then
there's a section just past the airport heading towards the chapel that you get that long, I mean, it's actually a signs that the road's, shifted. You get that great long crack going through there, which suggests that it's, just moving. And there's a couple of low spots that don't flood now, but, the road sits in the water all the time, through those two curves. There's swamp on both sides of that, and so the water, if you got the water sitting in your roadway, it's always kind of wet and active, and it's not something that we have to raise, but something to be mindful of if you're going through that level of work, should you do it then or not.
that's why, I don't know what to do, but it would be nice to have that study first, to know.
Yeah,
I think if we do anything, we should go with your idea of reclaiming the roads and turning them into dirt roads for
We're gonna have to do that anyway.
for the, maybe in the fall, get someone up, but I don't know how much, could you find out how much maybe just that would cost?
Yeah, we could. I haven't gotten the number back yet, but I tried to ask the engineers. I think they might have given us a ballpark, but I can try and find something more.
I think that might be a good idea to do. I mean, I know people will hate it, but it will hopefully, we have to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. The roads they're bad enough as it is, and if you reclaim them, it's not gonna be much different.
It will be better if it's graded every once in a while than it will be the way it is now. I mean, hopefully, once it freezes, it will be easier to maintain. You won't have to.
All right, so get us some numbers on reclaiming for now. But yeah, likely the actual paving will be, we'll discuss it on next annual budget discussion. My last one.
Before I sidetracked you, distracted you, I don't know if you vote on that.
Yeah, we
No,
did.
we never did.
Oh,
So the motion,
we had a motion in a second.
yeah, the motion and second is still at 346,500. Is there any more discussion on that number? Well, really, there shouldn't be. All those in favor? Here we go, okay. So now the Knox County budget is what it is, and how much they just running us this year.
Yeah, it went up 40 grand, I believe.
Good God.
Sorry. Yeah, just over 40 grand. So, see if I got it in here.
Well, imagine that. 2021 proposed expenditures on municipalities, Camden 12%, Vinalhaven 3%.
So to understand, of course, for those that aren't aware, the county budget's based, our town's contribution to county tax or our assessment is based entirely on our town's valuation. What are we worth? The valuation the state had for us for 2020 was $506,950,000. The proposed state valuation for 2021 is $527,100,000.
So our valuation went up by 5% in 1 year, is that right?
So that's the proposed valuation. Doesn't generally change a whole lot. So that's one of the big reasons for the big increase is the county budget overall.
What 2% raise on?
County budget overall. 2020 budget was 8.27 million. Next year's total, or for 2021, which they're in now, is 8,443,904. So it went up $166,000 or 2%.
Does that probably mostly due to the increases in all the salaries people probably have already included into the thing, I would assume?
They got a $150,000 increase in the sheriff's budget. They got a big decrease in the building maintenance.
Sorry to interrupt you, Andy, but Lizzie just messaged me. There's some sort of technical problem. They're still looking at the donations sheet. But if you want your screen sharing, I mean.
I had that locked on the different ones. Hopefully it's up there now. Should be up there now. So that's, again, just a quick overview of theirs. $62,000 decrease from last year in the deeds line. So they increased their use of their surplus, the general fund surplus, by 58,000 to absorb some of the increase.
What is the, why am I not seeing the total on this page?
For the county's total budget?
Yeah, well, no, for what we need to approve from town.
Oh, sorry, so for Vinalhaven's total amount due for next year is $610,912 based on that estimate, that proposed state valuation.
Well, what do you say, don't pay them?
That's like,
Yeah, what do they do if we don't pay them?
They charge you interest. for paying late. Just as someone who doesn't pay us might charge an interest. It's not like I guess I don't know legally what the ramifications
would they
are.
send anyone that's from Vinalhaven that's in jail back here and not let us go to the courthouse? Is that what they do?
Yeah.
It's never. I'm
Good.
not sure what that looks like. For our purposes, if someone doesn't pay the taxes, then there's a lien on the property, and I don't think they put a lien on all of
On
Vinalhaven.
Vinalhaven.
Well, I move approval at
Guess we have no choice.
610,000.
Well, you don't approve it, just it's assessed to us.
Oh,
That's what we
no,
owe.
oh,
It's
is
not in
that,
there, yeah, it's not in there as a motion.
they're not even article, they're not even
Yeah.
town meeting, okay.
So they go through their own budget.
Okay, well, I don't make a
process.
motion then.
We have no choice. We pay what they tell us.
All right. Okay, so the only thing we haven't done is revenue, but it's 7:30 people. I mean, like, do we have to do this revenue? Well, we every year we decide, what, or if that, because we approved the numbers on the sheet, are we all set? We approved the.
I mean, I think based on going through the budget, there was a lot of those had revenue offsets in there. I don't think I heard anything huge other than the continued thought and review on the landfill stuff, the plumbing permit fees. I think we felt we're gonna review them anyways, just to see if we're still inconsistent, but
Right.
I don't think, there was still no proposal to consider revenue offsets for the harbor or harbor reserve line yet. So that's not proposed. I gotta look again, better look closer at the investment and interest monies that a couple of years ago gave us a little more than they do now, but just make sure, but that'll all be part of the annual town warrant, unless there's things that you have substantial questions on that I can answer.
No,
Or changes you want to make that are substantial there. It'll be part of the review, final approval for the warrant.
right, so then that'll be on our next meeting to approve date, time, and.
Yeah, if you're ready, if there's no more
I
to.
mean, I think I know it's a lot of money, but I think we went through it and we didn't find anything else to cut. I don't think we'll add anything. I think we
should move the wall down.
yeah, Washington County really would be like,
You're the new one.
yeah, on the whole county, okay. So, report of town manager.
All right, so there's, I'll just remember all this. This is just just like we're receiving money from the most recent Relief Funds Act, American ARPR, or what the acronym is. The counties are also receiving monies from the government. In Knox counties due to make or receive, I think it was like $7 million maybe. And so this is a letter from Union Select Board, and or I guess from the town manager on behalf of the board, basically asking the county what it is they plan on doing with the funds. Those funds are meant to offset, this is ours, their budget, go to infrastructure, go to other things that outlined in the bill. Other counties and other parts of the state provide different services to the municipalities. And this is kind of calling into that. The way Maine's set up, the counties don't generally provide infrastructure, roads, plowing. I mean, other places of the counties offer more services through the county. And so it's just calling in, just asking, how is it going to be used? And trying to get it out there now.
But I agree with the guy's letter that Broadband would be a good place to put it.
Yeah, I mean, in his case, there is an effort in the Mid-Coast to talk about a regional broadband effort right now. There's a couple towns talking about it. And he's acknowledging that he knows that conversation is happening. And I think he actually asks for Union's perspective that he believes they should be shared. The funds should be shared based on population of the individual municipalities. And then the municipalities could then decide how that money is best spent in their towns. That's what Union is asked. Other towns, I think, I get the impression, might be asking for it to be spent on broadband based on not necessarily population. One of them had suggested that.
It'd be by valuation, by how much we pay. And if we pay 6%, we should get 6%. If Canada pays 12, they should get 12.
So the purpose of the funds going out was for infrastructure or direct relief to people. And so that's where places that have maybe lower valuation or higher populations, or a higher population and a high valuation are suggesting that perhaps it just go directly to people, and so that it gets allocated towns based on population. So that was the intent of one of the intents of the. So again, other towns are writing into the commissioners. We should do the same thing. It's just, I don't know if there's a particular way you want to see it used that I could write on your behalf to send in. Like Union's talking about doing it based on population. If your position is that it should be allocated to the towns, or just generally ask, how are you spending it? If you have a recommendation that it be done based on valuation, I can write that up.
I would go with Jake's recommendation as well, but
I mean, most of those, like Camden and Rockland and Rockport, with the population, a lot more dense, I bet they have a lot better broadband than like Union, some of those towns that are more spread out even. If it's gonna go to broadband, it should be going based on need, not, whose internet's the worst.
I think Rockport had put up something to their voters in the last year or so about municipal support for broadband. I don't remember exactly what it was calling for, but
I'm just assuming that, just like our downtown is better internet than outskirts, I'm assuming that the same way like in Camden and Rockland, where they have the downtowns, they probably have.
they have more options than this.
I don't know.
I would be behind broadband, obviously, especially if the county was all decided, we're gonna put all this money towards broadband, but how would that end up coming up here, I guess is my question.
yeah, I mentioned to Gabe early on that, I think when it came up, there's certainly ways in which, if there was a mid-coast regional, municipal broadband effort that was happening, like I said, a county undertook it, or a group of towns in the county were part of that. There's the chance to share some admin and overhead costs. There's a chance to share if you're gonna have to contract with someone to do maintenance on the lines and respond to issues, potentially you have the opportunity as a group to then share in some of those higher admin costs that could then lower, presumably what we've been looking at.
Right.
No guarantee, but that's a possibility.
You said it was 7 million total to Knox County,
I think that's what I remember.
because there's
seeing
19 towns in Knox County, so it's only like 370,000, I think that's per town, if everyone got an equal share, so it's not.
Well, every town got an equal share.
Right, that's what I'm saying, every town, so it's not, if they go by population, we're gonna get even less than that, so.
Right.
When we pay, what, 4th or 5th post in taxes, so I think that's,
Yeah.
there's gotta be a way to balance that out a little bit. 'Cause why should we be paying that much in taxes, but then get so little in the federal funding.
I mean, obviously, they do have needs. I mean, every year they've got needs for the jail, some of the other infrastructure that are part of county services, but
Right.
there's definitely a big difference, when they've made that carte blanche just across the board, all counties, and you look at places in Virginia and Michigan, and those are the two that come to mind. I think some of the Carolinas, one of the Carolinas, I think the county government's just so much more. I mean, even back where I grew up in New York, I mean, the county maintained some of the roads, plowed some of the roads. There were county roads. So it's just different in Maine delegation's been is aware of this, obviously. And, I can't remember what King's position on it was, but he had a statement about it.
Well, I just saw there's like 129 million or 100 million the state's getting for infrastructure that they're putting into broadband, right? Wasn't that in the paper today? And the state already has another 29 million.
129 million.
Right, but 100 million was from one thing and 29 million.
Yeah.
All right, so.
So what are we gonna ask? Are we gonna have you draft a letter just asking them how they're gonna use it and saying that we think broadband would be a good infrastructure project for the island and that it should be allocated by percentage of the budgets covered by each town, or how would you word it? I don't know how you word it.
Something along those lines.
I mean, start with just how's it gonna be allocated,
Yeah.
and just ask them that, just as we're still.
Yeah, and then, but then the suggestion would be broadband based on allocation of valuations, yada, yada, yada. Take it out of here.
All right, shared with you just the minutes from the last coastal marine working group of the Maine Climate Council. The time commitment for those has decreased, but still attend those when they come up. I think they're quarterly now. Next one's in June. Get a chance to present questions on that. Eric and Jake had taken a start at drafting the comments for tomorrow, the rally. I've edited and added to it. If anyone had a chance, I sent it out this afternoon. If anyone had a chance to read that.
I think you did great.
Well, I was gonna suggest if no one had gone through it, that we have some kind of, an ending, because we kind of left it open because we thought people were gonna, what you did was good.
Yeah. I think it
I
was.
mean, that's what we talked about at the last meeting to have in there, wasn't it? What me and Eric basically had. I mean, you added to it and changed some of the wording that we had, but I thought it was probably better than what we had, so.
Yeah. I think you did.
We
very well.
kind of meant it as a rough draft. We thought we'd get more feedback and we were gonna plan on redoing it if we got any feedback, but we didn't see any. So.
I mean, in the email I did, share, part of my hesitation and concern last time was, and I don't think I talked much about it, but to some degree what Eric Davis had brought up, is depending, and we know what it's supposed to be, and the concern of if it turns into a different type of rally, as it's perceived to potentially be, I can't put myself in a position where if it turns into a political rally, I can't be on that, part of that. And so that was, part of the hesitation too. And so, I think the comments we plan to share on behalf of the board and the town are fine. What the rallies told us, what we're told it's supposed to be is fine. Just being cognizant of what it is when we're there.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it shouldn't be a political rally.
Well, I mean, there's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans speaking before Andy, so I mean, it's not political. It's not supposed to be, but hard to say what it'll turn into. Like you said, you can't control. Some people that talk after you're going to be fishermen. You can't really control what they might say. I mean, I have no idea what So.
I mentioned this, I think at the last meeting, the DOT puts out, I think every year, opportunity to loan the speed trailer. I put in for it again this year to have it for a few weeks, and they actually called back and said, it might be just too complicated to try and get it back and forth. What if we just gave you one of them? So yeah, it wouldn't be on a trailer. It'd just be
Like the one they have in Rockland on Main Street that says how fast you're going by,
Like
whatever the
a
navigator's called now.
a fixed one, or we would have to move it to a different post or get a trailer to put it on and tow it. But we could easily put a few posts in places that we knew we wanted to see it, and if we wanted to move it.
It does make you pay attention when you see that flashing at you in Rockland in different places, especially on like, they have them in a lot of the speed zones and construction zones when you're driving down south, and it does, sometimes you don't pay attention.
There are things that we shall do as part of the contract and having this out here, which was the same as before. It's A through S, so there's a few. I think one of the bigger ones is just, the data collected from it is intended to go toward, to the state police or whatever the police department is that, over or patrols the town just to help with speed, follow up on making sure people are following speed limits, which we know is a challenge sometimes. That's the big one. We were asked to move it around for certain lengths of time. It's stuff again that we've done before. It's nothing too big. But we're going to sign that if you guys were amenable to that contract, those terms, and having it for, I think we have to at least 3 or 5 years or something like that.
Does it have to be out 12 months a year?
It doesn't. No,
I didn't really read through it when I just.
It said, should the municipality discontinue its use of the device for a period of 6+ months, the device will be returned to main battery.
So for at least 6 months a year.
Yeah,
As long as they're using it fairly regularly.
I would think that would be pretty easy to accommodate.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and sign it.
Go ahead and sign it, yeah.
Okay. Other than that, I do have. Talk about the capital projects. There's 2 bills to be that we got attention of. There's no hearing for it yet, but Jake brought it up before. There's LD 101, an act to prohibit offshore wind energy development, presumably given the board stamps in position for speaking to the rally. This bill proposed by Representative Buckingham is to prohibit offshore wind in the state waters. We all know that state legislation can't prohibit it in federal waters, but that's in there. There's no hearing yet, but just checking in to see if there's something. Should that hearing become be set, it's likely to be next week. So we won't have a meeting beforehand. So just to get a sense for if the board feels the town should submit something either for, against, or neither for nor against, but just testimony for the hearing about citing or not citing prohibiting wind in state waters.
I mean, I think we should probably send. I mean, I've sent in a comment already for the whole Zone C lobster advisory, whatever it's called, the thing. So I mean, and I've submitted a personal comment, in favor of. I mean, like they said, it's already pretty much banned for 10 years from what Janet Mills.
There's a moratorium.
Right. This is just to make it permanent.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between within 3 miles and the fishing activity that happens within 3 miles of the coast
Right.
versus what happens 20 to 40 miles offshore or anywhere outside of the 3 mile line. There's a lot of that.
And I mean, well,
inside
when it's
3 miles.
within 3 miles, you're gonna see them. It's gonna be right in front of. I mean, I think we should. I don't know. Maybe you could write up a comment that just said that we'd be in favor of extending Janet Mills' 10-year moratorium to permanent or something. But
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But it's not really, it's not really tomorrow's problem.
No, but if the bill gets a hearing, they would likely set the date for it. It hasn't been set yet, but if they're gonna be in this session, it'll have to be set, I think, this week or probably next week.
Yeah, no, I mean, not tomorrow's problem, they're not 2 years.
Oh, right.
Yes, to say we're opposed in state waters, I'd say. And then we'll see what happens 10 years from now.
Oh, so yeah, this would, if this passes, it would just prohibit it.
Yeah,
Right now,
I know, but I have my doubts about it passing.
Oh. Oh, okay.
any bill can always be repealed at some point.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I think our friend
This is
from down east has a reputation for, well, I'll keep it politically correct for a moment, but he has a reputation.
So just to confirm, in favor generally of this bill, should
Yes.
go to public hearing, just saying that, the town would agree that because of the fishing activity that occurs in the state waters, that we don't feel it would be prudent to cite them.
Around here, I can't think of any spot that doesn't have traps on it
Right,
inside
yeah.
3 miles at some point in time or another.
Mhm.
The other one is another. There was a sea level rise bill that came up. It was about infrastructure funding for sea level rise work. Didn't have a chance to run that by you guys, so we didn't propose, write anything for that. There's another one coming up, LD 1572, resolve to analyze the impact of sea level rise. The big piece of that is it sets the projections in years for which the state agencies would review laws and rules, and that it would be a consistent benchmark that is followed for when state or towns are planning for, when the state's planning for capital projects. They look at a 1.5 foot sea level rise by 2050 and a 3.9 foot sea level rise by 2100. So that there's not these different benchmarks out there, and should we aim for this and this one's aiming for that. They just want to, the bill would largely put that in place.
Would make sense to have some kind of a benchmark on those, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's what was called for in the climate action plan, through that working group process. That was one of the big ones. Any future work, what is it? There should be a common or an agreed benchmark, for projects out in the future. So this puts that in motion and would set the 1.5 for 2050 and 3.9 feet by 2100.
So if you're planning a project that's gonna last 50 years, you got to take into account the 1.5, and if you're planning something for 100, you got to just, is that basically what the bill's reading?
Yeah.
When is that hearing?
May 7th.
Or did you want to submit a comment on that, or?
Just checking in to see if you wanted to as a town. I mean, we obviously have a lot of things. I mean, I think the state knows the work Vinalhaven's been doing through the committee and the board, and
I don't.
we've been applying some of these things, and so it's a matter of whether, I think that's relatively consistent with what we've been talking about. So just testimony supporting that, if that's something you do support.
I don't even know if it needs a comment. It's just pretty much common sense. I mean,
you could just write something real short that says that we think it's.
yeah, say we give 2 thumbs up.
We've already been using similar benchmarks, and we agree or something.
Right.
Because you could probably submit them online. It wouldn't take you more than. It's not going to be a big time suck for you. Is all I was asking.
No, yeah, a couple of sentences on
Yeah.
tips suffice.
Right. Okay. I probably have more, but that's all I had written down on there.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Don't forget we have to sign those things.
Yeah, before we leave, we have to sign these. Now, hopefully no reported members, because it is midnight.
I'm kidding.
All right, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? I don't care who seconded it. Okay, Val, again.
Sign those and.